We have 4 presenters from different backgrounds and countries to share their perspectives and experiences about the topic. I will briefly introduce each presenter before their presentation, but before that, I would like to give a few instructions to ensure a smooth flow and sufficient time for each presenter. So first is we need each presenter to keep to the time limit of 10 minutes for their
Recording in
presentation.
progress.
Please pay attention to the chat box. Anson will let you know when it is 3 minutes or 1 minute to time. And then the presenters will be presenting one after the other. And then we will reserve the remaining 15 minutes, more or less, for questions or discussions with the 4 presenters. So meanwhile, I invite the ones who are following this session online, take advantage of the chat box to post any questions or comments about the presentation. So to begin, our first presenter is Professor Mikiko Nishimura, who is a professor of Sociology of Education and Director of Service Learning Center in the International Christian University in Japan. Professor Nishimura has done empirical studies on education reforms and has carried out extensive research and freelance consulting on education and poverty alleviation in Asian, African, and South American countries. So, Professor Nishimura.
All right. Thank you very much. Today, I'm so honored to be part of the panel, and I'm going to talk about the essential elements of service learning for cultivating social responsibility. As you may know, in Japan and Korea, we have a low proportion of young people who feel that they are satisfied with their society as compared to other countries in Europe and the US. When it comes to the question whether they would like to engage themselves with social issues to make a better society, it's more depressive result. In Japan, it's only 10.8% of young people aged between 13 and 29 who say that they would like to contribute to the society as compared to other countries. So we have a very depressive scenario in terms of how young people feel that they are part of the society and to be able to contribute to society. It's not just young people. When it comes to faculty members at the university, you can see the low proportion of faculties who have served in community-based project and also who have served socially at local, national, and international levels. Now, at ICU, we analyzed the students' report over the past years and found one critical issue. We have noticed that students have paid attention to their learning in terms of personal growth. So students reported that they have noticed multiple perspectives, they have learned new ideas, and they feel that they have grown. But we have noticed there's a lack of critical perspective on and structural analysis of social inequality and problems, and a weak social justice and social change perspectives, as well as a broader analysis of power within service learning. So, having analyzed those critical issues together with the socio-cultural context here, we came up with the 4 essential elements of service learning. That is inquiry, positionality, dialogue, and reflection. So inquiry is a question that students pose towards a social issue, but it's not the same as research question, but it has to be a broad social issue where they can feel that they can be part of the issue. So for example, what is the role of outsiders in developing countries? How do people grow awareness of peace? So these ones are examples of inquiry questions. The second essential element of service learning that we came up with was positionality. It's a sense of ownership to the issue in terms of how students recognize the issue in light of critical reflection on their own experience in previous research and how they associate themselves with the issue. So positionality is different from position. Position is easy to understand, and sometimes we act according to position. Position is a status quo, static, receptive, and uncritical, not to question power relation. It can be unconscious, and not to question the status quo or social norms. And knowledge is regarded as to be given, and social issues are things that exist objectively regardless of oneself. Positionality, on the other hand, is to challenge one's given limit. So it's driven by inquiry. It can change according to your service activities. It requires spontaneous and critical attitude to negotiate with power relations around you. And it requires conscious attitude towards prejudice and limitation, and to question the status quo or social norms. So here, the knowledge is not to be regarded as something to be given, but something to create. And students need to look at social issues as something in which they should be involved as one of the members. And in the Japanese context, positionality is very important to note, because people tend to behave according to the position. Dialogue and reflection are very essential parts of service learning to create students' motivation and also critical mind to question how they are, how they think, how they behave, etc. So we raise some issues in dialogue about epistemology, ontology, axiology, and methodology. So how do you know what you know? How and why do things, people, and systems exist? What are the standards of values? And how can you know the truth? All these critical questions are very important regardless of the area of service that students conduct. So in our service learning activities, we have witnessed some changes, very interesting changes. For example, when students regard them as outsider of the community with limitation of lack of information, knowledge, and experiences, after joining the community, they quickly realize, well, community is not just a single entity, but it has multiple voices. So you can't just define outsiders or insiders, but maybe insiders are various. So they kind of realize that they can become a bridge builder for the community themselves. And they create kind of activities that bridge different parts of the community. So they kind of found more proactive positionality as an outsider, as part of their community. We have some other students who questioned their narrow definition of abilities and development. For example, students went to work with people with disability and quickly found that the narrow-minded definition of ability should be questioned by looking at those disabled people working so brilliantly, and they could do even better than the students themselves. When they went to African community to do some community activities there, they realized, oh, we have done so much, but community people are so slow to achieve certain things. They lack sense of ownership. And then they question themselves, but by the way, what is the definition of development? Who defines better change in this society? Until when we have to achieve this goal? Maybe depending on how you look at the better change, people behave differently. So they start to question their own perception, behavior, way of thinking by serving in the community together. Some other students became interested in custom skills and wisdom that are already existing in the community, rather than coming with the skills and knowledge from the university to apply to the local issues, to just rush to solve the problem. So all in all, students grow ownership of learning by critically reflecting on how they are, how they think, and how they behave. So we create the loop of critical eyes towards the problem setting, then changes in one's own positionality, and then proactive attitude with ownership towards the next action and academic learning. So this is just a learning rubric. You can see here, we pay attention to all cognitive, social, emotional, and behavior aspect of students. I'll skip this one. So in the nutshell, what is the important element to really make service learning as something that cultivates social responsibility? Service learning is not the magic bullet, so it doesn't automatically transform students' mind. But we believe that process-based learning design through various levels of dialogue is very essential. And it's not just faculty and students who share this process, but community members should be involved from the beginning to share the purpose of service learning so that we can really, how can I say, think together as co-creator of knowledge and lifelong learner together. Faculty's positionality as a co-creator of knowledge with students and community is also essential. And to make the link between ownership of learning and aspiration for social contribution, it's critical to nurture citizenship and also activate the student's mind to really be able to contribute to society. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Nishimura. So we will reserve questions for later. So now we would like to invite Ms. Tran Huong, who is the founder and executive director of Vietnam Campus Engage Vietnam. So VCE is a nonprofit organization founded in 2018. It functions as a resource center to help Vietnamese universities to advance civic education for social transformation. So Ms. Huong, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you, Frick.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Mikiko Nishimura, for your presentation. My name is Huong, as Rina already introduced. So we found the Vietnam Campus Engage to be a resource center for development of service learning, community engaged learning in Vietnam, a vehicle for youth transformation and social change in Vietnam. So let me just summarize some facts about Vietnam Campus Engage and VNEST. Last year, we found a VNEST, mean Vietnam Network of Engaged Scholars. So we have around 500 members from more than 100 universities in Vietnam. So we organize several online and offline national and international workshops, webinar, and many more activities such as coaching, funding, community campus, partnership, building, etc. But I would want to focus more in the talk about how I found this way at a tool for social change in Vietnam context. I personally started to work for a non-government organization in 1996. So with more than 20 years working in this area, the context is that the nation deficiency in resource in meeting the need of social development are very huge. So even recently, government official document admit that we still have deficiency meeting the big need in humanitarian work for development, for social welfare, emergency support. So, and they call for all stakeholders and sign in Vietnam to contribute. To go back to my experience working for social chain or NGO work. So I understand the insight for development work for a long time, and I can see the struggle for sustainability of NGO, non-government organization, even though they try many directions like direct project, direct beneficiary, indirect activities such as policy, advocacy, and variety of methods such as communication, empowerment, participation, access-based community development. So, and you know that even $1 billion spent on Vietnam for more than 20 years that I can see, but still they still have been struggling a lot to find a more effective and sustainable way. This is still lasts, the legacy still lasts after project, campaigns, a program end. It's going to be a big challenge. And it was also my searching for my professional pathway too. Until early 2010, for that time that I would want to have a non-profit project, but they don't have much funds. And so we found that I have group of students, a class from the university, and we was very successful with almost no funding. And because I was the project manager for NGO, so I know how to like calculate. To achieve this, you have to have how much input you have to have invest, like how many people, how many staff, how many month a day, money, all sorts of things. So I know that to achieve the same work reason normally it requires an NGO, a team of more than 10 staff working for several months. Here is like almost nothing, no funding. It's just the volunteer work. Then I figured out this is the way. Then until 2016 that I started being a director of Center for Service Learning in the university in Vietnam, which were very new then. I knew that with the experience, even though it's very new in Vietnam, that I would consider service learning as a lifelong professional way for social change in Vietnam, and it's the best, the most effective and sustainable way. I can be sure about that. And I also noticed and connect with the service learning movement this time in Asia, in the higher education institution in Asia, in Hong Kong, in Singapore. There's a lot that happened this time, really rising in Asia from 2010 up to now, developed so fast. And I learned so much from the regional development. And that coming to last year and last 2 years, we found the organization and the network. And and I can see it just for a short time, and it's new, the need for capacity building in this area for higher education in Vietnam still very big. But what happened with on the service learning and here in Vietnam is really, really huge. So I can see that like the first generation of service learner, now after that, after their experience, they develop their own way, they develop more projects, and they graduate and they become a leader, they become such officer, they always develop something. So the impact, it should not meeting on the need of the non-profit organization or the public sector or the public good or thing like that, but change so much for the youth generation in Vietnam that I believe that this kind of, it's like a huge gold mine. Why we need a lot of resource for social development, and here is the way. So that's why we VCE Vietnam Campus Engage in VNAS try now best to develop service learning in a way to create more and more resource by capacity building and service learning. So this is the more effective, why it's the more effective and sustainable way for social change from my observation and also our research, because it costs far less than any other way of interfere or source of funding for social development before that I can see from my more than 20 years experience working for NGO, especially international NGO. And it's a huge and almost unlimited resources. And it covers most of aspects in social change. Because we know that many, and it's all know that any discipline in university, in higher education can have service learning. More importantly, it change and transform the young people, and they will change the society. They will change themselves right when they're still in the university. And after that, And because they will continue after this experience, but they will work and live with a spirit of social responsibility for the rest of their life and their family, their children, their leadership, their work ethics, etc. So I see that I just want to share the what it's just some idea about what happened in Vietnam. It's still new, it still have a big need for capacity building, but if NGO and international or even national, any resort want to invest in social change development here, invest in service learning, invest in student, youth, and university social responsibility. That is my, I tried to sum up in 10 minutes. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Huong. So now
Thank you.
we invite Dr. Wong Ching, Angela, who is Vice President for Programs of the United Board for Christian Higher Education in Asia, based in Hong Kong. So the United Board is an NGO committed to whole person development, and to this end, it draws strength from Christian values as it promotes programs and grants to collaborating Asian colleges and universities. Dr. Wong has been a longtime faculty member in the Chinese University of Hong Kong. As an academic, she has published widely in Chinese and English on topics of religion, gender, and culture in Asia. So today she is going to talk about how the United Board cultivates social responsibility through its campus community partnerships. Professor Wong, you may start.
Sure. Can you see my slide?
Now we can see it.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I should also show myself. Hello, everyone. That's quite an honor to be here sharing with you what United Board do. And actually, if you were in one of the last parallel section, you heard from my colleague, Lanson Amos, that some of the more detailed informations about what projects United Board have been doing. So in this presentation, I'll try to concentrate more on the concepts or the framework that United Board operate with in terms of service learning. From Lanson's presentation just a while ago, you would learn that United Board has been supporting service learning projects for more than 20 years. In fact, United Board has been one of the initiator pioneering the network of service learning network in Asia and try to work on service learning more collaboratively and across different countries and different institutions. And so I'm going to touch on three points primarily, but I try to do it very briefly. So if you have any questions, you can ask me afterwards. Now, why social responsibility? I think that question is easy to answer, but I think the problem is university has not been answering them straightforwardly. I mean, yes, we are part of the society, so we definitely have social responsibility. But there are a lot of questions that are being posed to university education, the role of universities today. Whether we are an integral element to recreate social democracy, meaning that the participation of the most people in the society, regardless of where they come from, which part of the country, what level, what ethnicity, what religion, could all create a society that would be livable for everyone together. Or universities have been seen as an increasing instrument of elite domination of the planet. I mean, that's a critique you can see from the questions being asked. So whether it's served the population, regardless of their situations and positions, or whether it's primarily for the elite. I think that's the question behind. And then, so it continuously to pose questions to ourselves as higher education institutions. What are we relating to the world? How are we relating to the world? There's description about the present situations of VUCA. You can see all these words unfolding continuously. It's describing the impossibility sometimes, the uncertainty, especially under COVID, of what university can do to the society. And then increasingly, there is also this question of Bani, which try to name the future. Again, you can see an incomprehensible, anxious, chaos, and we have to make sense of it. And then again, the role of the university here. What does that mean? So eventually, it's about what is the role of the university in regard to our younger generation or the generations to come. UNESCO has this report titling Reimagining Our Futures Together and a New Social Contract for Education. So I see this as a call for universities to work together again and look at what is the primary responsibility of higher education, rather than governed or led by market rules. I mean, it's distinguished or characterized by chasing the rank, international ranking. I think recently we have again international ranking, the top 10, the top 100, the top 50. Well, what are we doing there? I think that's the question keep posing back to us. So the role, this will involve the role of university leadership, where we're looking at, and then in the United Board, we also now try to propagate integrated scholarship, meaning that it's not only about teaching or researching, which rankings goes to primarily for researching, even not so much on teaching. So teaching, researching, but also social service. That's the SDG goals that UNESCO try to advocate. And I think that's a very helpful orientation to how we could do our work. And then to embrace values of connection among people. There are so much ways of classifying, categorizing, and even integrating the community, our society. And then ethics, integrity, autonomy, respect, and the values of openness. So how can we try to embrace that? And I like these questions asked or posed by one of the two UNESCO chair for social participation or social roles of higher education. They say higher education has reached a point where we have a limited capacity to understand the way forward, but must have an unlimited capacity to care for each other and the planet. So yeah, Booker and Bani actually push us to ask ourselves what kind of capacity we have to understand the way forward. But again, at the same time, we are actually posed with this question. We do need to care for each other. We do need to care for the planet. We do need to care for our young people and all that responsibility for the world. Now, this is, we are United Board. We position primarily with Christian higher education in Asia, but we also work with non-Christian higher education in Asia, like in Vietnam, in Cambodia, where no Christian universities are present. We also work with them. We work with them in many different ways, and these are our program map, so to speak. And I will point to you particularly for the two parts that is highlighted in green and in gray. That is campus community partnership and culture and religion in Asia. And for campus community partnership, Lanson, my colleague just in an hour ago, talk about it. Our main focus now is try to scaling up institutional capacity for service learning and peace education. We found that service learning done by individual teacher or peace education at the same time will be quite demanding. So they need institutional support. They need institutional recognition. So that's what we use the term institutionalization of service learning and peace education, so that it could be an effort of the whole community on campus. And then we also have a part on culture and religion, because Asia is such a multi-religious place. We want to nurture a culture of care on campus and at the same time foster interreligious understanding. So I would not talk about the other part, although they are all related. Now, one of the approaches I suggested that we want to look at leadership, because we feel that leadership is so crucial to the whole development of the whole framework of understanding service learning and peace education for us. So competitive and effective, but at the same time has to have these values of being inclusive and welcoming. And for us, we feel that the reflective part, self-reflection, reflection with the community, reflection of the role of higher education is essential. And then for us, it's also spiritual. Spiritual doesn't mean that you have to be a Christian, but it's true to the vision and mission, and also set time for others and caring for others and caring of the self and connecting to the planet Earth or the greater power that you identify from your own tradition. So we also talk about develop a effective and also ethical faculty. Teachers teach themselves. So teachers themselves would be able, if teachers themselves can demonstrate a certain role, a certain, and embrace values that can be communicable to students, then the others will learn. So we want to connect classrooms to communities. We want to want our students, and for that purpose, the teachers themselves could live out a high purpose. It's not just studying for the purpose of studying teaching without thinking about the future of the society. So that's all these different parts that would come together. And at the same time, we want to develop a caring community. Not only intellectual and cognitive development in our students, we hope that it would be inquisitive. I think Mikiko, our Japanese colleagues, have just mentioned that, empathetic, socially committed, and spiritually mature. Again, spiritual mature is talking about purpose in life, awareness of a higher meaning, connecting to others. So I think I don't have time to go into all the detailed discussions of the different projects or sharing with the different projects, but we do training. Basically, we do training, we do grants. We provide grants to support institutional projects, and these are some of the projects that we have. And increasingly, we want to touch on integrating research. That means not only service, but also putting them out in thinking through them in terms of research. So I think I'll end my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Wong. So now we proceed to Father Dr. George Thadathil's presentation. So Father George is the principal of Salesian College in Sonada and Siliguri. Salesian College is a government-recognized minority educational institution in Kolkata province, India. It offers undergraduate and professional courses to more than 2,000 students. Father Thadathil will talk about the benefits experienced by the Salesian College from engaging in collaborative service learning projects. Father George, are you ready? Okay, I think Father Thadathil had logged in earlier, but it seems we lost him. But he quite foresaw
Recording stopped.
a difficulty like this, so he
Recording in
pre-recorded
progress.
his presentation. So we're just going to try to retrieve the video that he prepared, and if he logs in at a certain point, hopefully in time for the discussion, then we can also interact with him. But meanwhile, let's wait for the video to be played.
morning, and dear participants of the ICSL 2022. My panelists before me, Professor Mikiko from Japan, Mr. Tran Huong from Vietnam, and Dr. Ching from United Board. Thanks to Stephen, Grace, Kenneth, and Rina of the Polytechnic University Service Learning team. It's indeed a pleasure to be with you all and to share my little thoughts, which I will divide into a national perspective, a regional perspective, an institutional perspective, and faculty-student benefit of participation in service learning within an institution from our own experience. In the country of late, a lot of statistical studies with regard to teaching learning has come back to highlight the need for pedagogical reinforcement, innovation, in order to deepen the core activity of an educational institution, which is teaching and learning. And pedagogy, we cannot deny, is a combination of teacher thinking, teacher doing, and its inevitable impact on the students. So everyone across the country is concerned about improving the quality of education, pinning it down to the pedagogical processes involved in it. I guess here is where what we have gathered for, and all these years of dedicated work that the Service Learning Office of PolyU have so excellently performed, is coming to bear on every participant of this conference. As an institution in this region of the sub-Himalayas, Eastern Himalayas, and in the northern part of Bengal, sandwiched between 5 international borders, our own experience go back to 1962, when the then residential students took it upon themselves, at the invitation, of course, of their then faculty, to engage with the local population. And that tradition in our institution has come down to this present day. Week in and week out, taking to the communities what they have learned in terms of adding quality to the lives of young people in the villages. That is the background with which, when converting this basic experience of community engagement into a more professional mode of doing it, came in and through this invitation that came to us from Stephen and his team, Grace and Co. from PolyU. And this recent experience, wherein the computer applications and science students collaborated with the students of PolyU, wanting to do their service learning project and reach out to deserving school students in and around our institutions, came to happen. And in and through that experience, what I observed within the institution are a couple of things which I would like to share with you. First of all, the sheer newness of listening to, partnering with, and co-doing for a beneficiary target group. This newness I could see impacting on both the faculty and the students. The mere simple aspect of having to spend a strained year to get to know the accent of someone who speaks the same language but from a different cultural background, to the integrities of teaching artificial intelligence and object identification and playing games and creating competitions for the participating students. The students learn something new in terms of thinking out of the box and realizing that they have the capability to share the knowledge that they already have or the knowledge that they have been taught. And I think this is a key component of service learning, in the sense that the education is meant for cultivating in the entire system a certain responsibility, not only to the learner and not only to the one who is teaching and not only to the institution that provides it, but to a wider community around it. And I think this has been the overall gain that partnering with PolyU and its service learning team has brought to us in the recent past. I am glad that I have this opportunity to place this before you in this mode and to share the joy and vivacity, the enthusiasm and energy that this activity generated. I can only guess, therefore, how engaging and meaningful it would be if those same students did travel all the way, enjoy the little hospitality that we could offer, and meet up with the same students that they did online and taught them something more of what they had learned during the semesters that went by. And I guess in bringing institutions together, this conference itself has a great role, with all the papers being presented, the participants getting to know each other, institutions coming to know at closer quarters how and in what ways we could carry this forward. Thanks once again to everyone and for this opportunity to engage with you all. Thank you.
These are clips from the service project which Father George described, partnership between Salesian College and PolyU. Was an online STEM workshop. So PolyU students taught AI to the secondary students of Salesian College. This is quite recent. I think just within the past 2 months, right? Yeah. All right. So it's nice to hear the experience from the side of Salesian College. So now we have about a little less than 10 minutes to interact with the presenters. So if you have questions or comments for Professor Nishimura and Angela, Dr. Wong, and Ms. Huong, they are ready to answer, but I think first we have a question in the chat. Okay, so there is a question for Professor Nishimura from Zoe Xiao. Would you please elaborate on how the rubric you introduced is applied to evaluate students' growth in their ontology and methodology related to social responsibilities?
Okay, thank you very much. Because my presentation was so brief, I just mentioned that it covers cognitive, socio-emotional, and behavioral aspects of students. And that rubric is not really to measure students' competency as of a certain timeline, but it includes a lot of process orientation. So when it comes to reflection or identity, we look at students' report carefully, as in what they achieved, not in terms of what they have achieved, but rather how they have transformed. So by doing so, we could see their growth of social responsibility rather than what kind of social responsibility that they have achieved. I hope I made myself clear, but we have the whole rubric available on our website. So please take a look at that further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions from the audience who are present? Clara To?
Yes. Now is what? Good afternoon, everyone. Because I was attending another meeting, earlier, so I missed some of the presentations. But I would like to respond to Dr. Wong's, presentation. And also, actually, this is also in relation to Professor Furco's, presentation this morning. It seems to me that, it's not just the university, they have to, or the administration of the university, they have to have this, mindset. And I think Professor Furco talks about, how to integrate, right, really community engagement as a strategy, not just as a goal. I think in the situation of Hong Kong, I think the dilemma is that how the government looks at this, because I think right now, there is the government seems to want to promote, community engagement, not only at the university level, but also at the secondary school level, right? They have, they ask, the schools to organize activities, for the students, etc. But at the same time, we have this, UGC, right, funding body, which increasingly emphasize on research excellence, etc. So, and also I think yesterday I talked to Rina, and right now I think we have some room, some opportunity to, promote, service learning or, volunteering, as part of the, university education, because now we have the RAE, which includes, impact, social impact actually, right? As part of the evaluation, for the university funding. However, it seems to me that, at least, in my institution, the way that it's run is that we have, teams or, cases, sample cases, to fulfill or to kind of, fulfill, the impact, factor, that area. But so it seems to me that it runs in two directions. One way is that the government tries to promote, this kind of service learning or, students' engagement with the society, etc. But on the other hand, it also put a lot more pressure on the faculty members to do research, which has most of the time nothing to do with the community, right? Because we talk about journal rankings and all these kind of things, which are basically very academic oriented research. So for me, it's just an observation that it seems to me that it's not just the university administration, but also the government, their mindset, how they look at this is very important, for us to really, institutionalize or really to promote, service learning as part of the education, in Hong Kong University. I think that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. So we have about 5 minutes more before the end of this session. So perhaps if the, Vatana would like to say something.
Hello, Professor. Dr. Angela Wei Ching Wong. My name is Vatana from Cambodia, and I have started my organization just before COVID, and we're quite new to the rural community. Regarding your presentation about the Christian commitment and doing to the community, I have a question about the religious barrier. So as we are moving into this community and we're trying to bring in the development into the community based on the Christian value, but not only Christian, trying to be very spiritual thing, but we also want to bring the development into the community. But we see the what do you call, like the religious barrier, like, oh, I don't want to send my kid to your community because you are Christian, I don't want my kid to be believer or whatever. But do you see this from your experience, and do you have any kind of thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. So would any of the presenters like to respond?
Mikiko, do you want to respond first, and then I can sort of, no? Okay. Thank you for the question. I cannot see your name, but our Cambodia colleague, maybe I can answer this question first. We are aware, I mean, as UNADAPOD has been working in Asia for so many years, we are actually celebrating our 100 years this year. So we are very well aware of the multi-religious presence in many of our campus. In fact, even for the Christian colleges or universities, the majority of our students are non-Christian. So when we approach service learning in a community which has different religion, particular caution has to take place. And our approach, it may not be agreeable to all because there are also different conceptions and understanding. But for UNADAPOD, we are quite ecumenical in the sense that when we approach a community, we bring the Christian values without necessarily saying that you have to be a Christian in order to achieve this and that. We hope that in the presence of Christian service, where love and care and respect for the community would be there enough, sufficient enough, that they could join together. It could join hands with our projects, our service, for the faculty, for the students, and for the community members to see that we are not trying to evangelize them. We are just trying to bring good work and work with them for the good of the community, of the society. So that has been our approach, even for the different regions where like interreligious conflicts is high. We still try to do that, and it seems to be quite an effective way, because the service itself is try to bring the community together. It's not try to separate them by religion or ethnicity, because there are also different levels of conflicts that can appear. Then maybe I can go back to the earlier question that Clara raised about the government policy. You raise a really important question, because wherever we work, we realize that the education policy has a strong impact on how institutions could work, even though we work with primarily private institutions. But we in Cambodia or Vietnam or China even today, that we are working with national universities, public universities as well. But at the same time, we feel that it's really the educational policy really shape a lot of our thinking, especially on the leadership side. But despite that, there are always different strategies to cope with that. But the good news is, when you point to the situation of Hong Kong, or not just Hong Kong, I think in Asia now, Times Higher Education, one of the chief ranking body, and they are now regretting, actually I heard them saying that, oh, maybe we have done harm more than good in terms of like raising the ranking system so highly. So they actually created an alternative ranking system for the social impacts of universities. And this helped because if you look at the initial ranking system, Asia universities, except for North Asia, some of us do really well, but for most of our Asian institutions, they do not score as well. But for the social impact ranking, a lot more Asian universities, especially like in India, in Thailand, they really went up high because that's what a lot of the universities are doing in places like in places where community need is strong. So in that sense, I think it can be integrated in that sense that if, and I think universities in Hong Kong bought that. You see a lot of universities are going for experiential learning for students. Many universities like Hong Kong, USC, I think PolyU, I'm not following that closely in that sense, that promise to send their students, each of them, to some forms of experiential learning in the next 5 or 4 years. So that's really helpful. That means you have the institutional mandates to do it. But at the same time, if the teachers and students try to bring that towards some kind of research impact, like when you do a good project, you certainly have something to share with the community or the academy that a certain thing can be done better with student participation. And students also happy to do research along with their service. So if you can bring them together, it's actually one way to achieve these SDG goals, which meets with the social impact ranking if your university is really serious about, being ranked highly. So I think that's a very good emerging trend that I observed. And some of our Indian institutions who did so well in service learning are now also working on that too. So we are quite excited, and I think that could be a good way out in terms of try to strata towards surveys and research.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wong, and to all our presenters in this session. I wanted to conclude this session by reading a question that was in the chat box, which Ms. Huong responded to. I think it's a very good thought to come away with. So from the USR Summit Network, Rob Hollister, he asked the question, what do you want your service learning work to look like in 5 years, and what do you need in order to achieve these goals? To which Ms. Huong responded, I would invest in capacity building and want to see the change in faculty teachers. I believe that they are the center of the butterfly effect in service learning development. As they change, the students and community will change. So it's a nice thought to end this session with.